Chapter 71. Keeping a Distance. 1. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 71. Keeping a Distance. 1. She would be stupid if she said no. The resources that Chinchochi have are very good. It will be very advantageous for her if she gets her hand on them. Chinchochi chuckled lightly and pinched her cheek. If you want, then hurry up and cook for me. After all, you promised me you would. Suyaya didn't dare to slack off anymore. She quickly finished her skincare routine and ran to the kitchen to make porridge. Porridge was simple to make. Wash the rice, boil some hot water in a pot, put the rice into the pot of water once the water comes to a boil, and use small fire to boil it slowly. In addition, steaming xiaolongbao was pretty easy too. The morning before, Suyaya had already made some xiaolongbao at home, so there were a dozen or so still left in the freezer. She just needed to take it out and steam it until it's fully cooked. In a short while, the porridge and xiaolongbao were both done. Suyaya picked the bowl of porridge, put the xiaolongbao on a plate, and took the two items out to the table. Chinchochi was already sitting there, waiting to eat. The reason Chinchochi wanted to eat Suyaya's xiaolongbao was because he had eaten the xiaolongbao Suyaya made the day before. He couldn't take his mind off the delicious xiaolongbao afterwards. Suyaya had only eaten 4 xiaolongbao, while Chinchochi ate the remaining 8 and drank a bowl of porridge. Suyaya raised her head and looked at him. Was he going to go to the gym and run for 2 hours again? After having breakfast, Suyaya tidied everything up and told Chinchochi that she was heading out. She needed to shoot the advertisement for K Group's couple watch. Zhou Peiyun took Suyaya to the shooting site. The staff at the site were still busy preparing for the shoot. Zhou Peiyun took Suyaya to greet director Chu Jing and the representatives of the K Group first, only to find out that Yan Junyi's place was arriving late and was still on its way. Then let's wait. Zhou Peiyun smiled and said, Yaya can go and apply her makeup. Suyaya went to the dressing room to apply her makeup, and just when she finished applying makeup, she saw Yan Junyi and his party arrived. Yan Junyi's agent, Sister Wu, greeted everyone. She said with a smile, I apologize for being late. The plane arrived late. Little Yan will invite everyone out for coffee later. Brother Yan is too polite, the staff member said with a smile. That's right. It's out of your control that your plane is late, another staff member said. Brother Yan, this way. I will take you to the dressing room to apply makeup. A staff member led Yan Junyi to the dressing room to put on makeup. As soon as he looked up, he saw Suyaya standing next to him. Suyaya had already applied her makeup. The corners of her mouth curved into a beautiful smile as she smiled at her. Her brilliant eyes were captivating. Brother Yan, she called him sweetly. It was just like how she had called him when they were still children. Yan Junyi blankly stared at her, his eyes fell on her smiling face. Her smile was just as charming and beautiful as it was when they were young. His heart couldn't help but flutter when he saw it. He was just about to say something when Sister Wu came over and pulled on his arm. Little Yan, why aren't you applying your makeup yet? It's getting late. After he heard Sister Wu's words, Yan Junyi recalled what Sister Wu had warned him about a few days ago. He could only suppress his throbbing heart and gave Suyaya a slight nod. He followed the staff to put on his makeup. Suyaya stood still in place. Even if she was slow to react, she was still able to distinguish that Yan Junyi's attitude towards her was abnormal today. Wasn't he just fine a few days ago? At that time, he was very friendly towards her. Why did it seem like he had completely turned into a different person in just a few days? Chapter 72. Keeping a Distance. 2. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Ch 72. Keeping a Distance. 2. Suyaya was surprised by this change. Her eyes followed the direction Yan Junyi had left in when her gaze met Sister Wu's gaze. Even with the distance between the two, Suyaya noticed the vigilance and rejection in her eyes. Suyaya. Was she that scary? She didn't do anything to Yan Junyi, so why did his agent give her such a gaze? Fortunately, Su Yaya wasn't very stupid, she quickly thought of a possibility. Was it because Yan Junyi also had dirty water poured on him because of her? After thinking of it this way, Su Yaya felt that that was very likely the reason his attitude towards her had changed so drastically. Although Chen Xiuqi intervened in the incident and solved it perfectly, Yan Junyi had also sent a clarifying statement on Weibo to clarify their relationship. However, Yan Junyi was also scolded by many people because of the incident, so the rumor must have affected him too. Sister Wu must still be worried that she will implicate Yan Junyi again. After all, Yan Junyi was a popular actor and countless eyes would be watching over his every move. He can't have any more bad rumors with her, so it was reasonable that Sister Wu was full of precaution and vigilance against her. After thinking about the cause of this, Su Yaya doesn't blame Yan Junyi's abnormal attitude towards her. After all, the two of them have different identities and Yan Junyi needed to avoid suspicion because of his job. If that's the case, she will try to keep a distance from Yan Junyi too, Su Yaya thought. Perhaps because both of them wanted to keep a distance from each other, things become awkward when they were shooting the advertisement. Director Chu Jing was annoyed and began scolding them, "What's the matter with you two? You're supposed to act like couples, do you know? When a couple looks at each other, their eyes must be full of love. Neither of you did that. When the two of you looked at each other, it looked like you just saw your next-door neighbor. If I want to shoot something like that, then why did I have to do all this? Please understand that we are shooting an advertisement for a couple watch. The scene needs to be full of sweetness, even the air must feel sweet. I don't want a lifeless and dull expression, okay? Director, I'm sorry. I didn't have a good rest yesterday, so I'm not feeling too well, so it affected the shooting. I will adjust it right away, it won't happen again when we shoot later." Yan Junyi took the initiative to apologize and took on all the responsibilities on himself. He apologized sincerely and promised that he would be serious about the shooting later so that he won't make such a mistake again. Seeing Yan Junyi apologizing, Su Yaya quickly apologized to the director too. "Director, I'm sorry. I will also adjust my emotions later and work hard." Director Chu Jing's anger was reduced after having already scolded him and after Yan Junyi apologized. Seeing Su Yaya's obedient and well-behaved appearance, he didn't scold her again. He waved his hands and said, "The two of you can rest for 2 minutes. In 2 minutes, we will start shooting again." Su Yaya and Yan Junyi glanced at each other, but neither of them said anything to each other. They went to rest in their own respective area and adjusted their emotions for the shooting. 2 minutes soon passed, Su Yaya and Yan Junyi returned to the set to continue shooting. This time, the two finally behaved normally. They brought out each other's highest acting skills. Their eyes were full of spirit and love when they looked at each other. It was as if they were really a couple in love. The shooting went smoothly after this. Chen Xiuqi had came here secretly, he didn't inform anyone when he arrived. He quietly took Assistant Chen through the back door. He was just in time to see the scene where Yan Junyi gifted the couple's watch to Su Yaya, the two of them hugged and kissed. Chen Xiuqi glared at the two people who had just hugged and kissed each other. The corners of his mouth turned downward and he muttered in dissatisfaction, "Aren't they just shooting an advertisement? Why do you need to kiss when you shoot an advertisement? What kind of useless advertisement is this? The author has something to say." Chen Xiuqi. "When we go back, I need to get my profit back." Chapter 73. Not from the Same World, 1, you are listening at novelfull.audio. Ch 73. Not from the Same World, 1, Chen Xiuqi stared at the two who were in a kiss for a few seconds before he turned around with a gloomy face. Assistant Chen had no choice but to follow along when he heard Chen Xiuqi say displeased, "Isn't she just filming a watch ad? Why must there be extra things in the ad? What's this stupid ad? Don't let her film things of this sort in the future." Assistant Chen silently followed behind him while listening. He tried to minimize his presence, trying to avoid setting fire to himself. Right now, it was clear Chinchouchi was unhappy. After murmuring this, he felt a ball of fire burning in his heart. He turned to look at Assistant Chen and knitted his eyebrows, asking, why did she choose to film an ad like this? Assistant Chen was helpless. Who was he supposed to ask? Chinchouchi didn't expect a response from him either. He turned around and walked back with a gloomy face, sitting in the car parked outside the film studio. Assistant Chen stared at his silhouette emitting a cold aura and endured the freezing atmosphere around him. After summer, came winter. He wanted to wear extra clothes. President Chen, where are we going now? The driver, Uncle Zhong, detected how unhappy Chinchouchi was. Yet, he braced himself and asked. After all, it was his responsibility. Chinchouchi said expressionlessly and coldly, the company. Uncle Zhong hurriedly said okay and started the car, making a U-turn and driving him to the company. In the film studio, no one knew Chinchouchi had gone there. Everyone was focused with their work, up until the couple's watch ad was finished filming. Su Yaya and Yan Junyi's photo shoots were very successful. Besides being scolded by director Chu for their bad cooperation at the beginning, the two quickly adjusted themselves and had precise acting skills. They quickly immersed themselves in this photo shoot and completed the filming of the couple's watch ad according to director Chu's requirements. Su Yaya and Yan Junyi sighed after it was completed. They thanked the staff for their work and there was a harmonious atmosphere. Su Yaya and Junyi went back to the makeup room, to remove their makeup. There was no one in the hallway so Su Yaya took the chance to say to Yan Junyi, thank you for helping me out on Weibo the other day. The day of the incident, Chinchouchi had taken Su Yaya's phone away. She wasn't clear what happened online until later on when she realized that Yan Junyi had cleared the situation for her. However, that was the second day after it happened. Thankfully, before this, Zhou Peiyun helped her forward Yan Junyi's Weibo and give a clear reply. She addressed Yan Junyi as her good neighbor and posted a cute picture of them. It gave her a favorable impression amongst the users. When the fans saw this on Weibo, they all bumped #BestNeighbor, #MineIsBrotherYan and titles like that. There were others commenting how the most handsome brother Yan and most beautiful Yaya were neighbors and wondering why they didn't have neighbors like them. This evoked a round of laughter amongst the users. They were extremely ecstatic and it was a humorous atmosphere. Of course, occasionally, there would be a negative comment. But it would quickly be suppressed by fans who liked Su Yaya and Yan Junyi. They maintained the peace and happiness under their Weibos. Seeing her Weibo, Su Yaya was grateful for Yan Junyi for helping her out. She clearly knew how horrifying cyberbullying was. It would be incredibly easy to suppress an online celebrity like her. Yan Junyi's Weibo, which had clarified the situation for her, was extremely helpful. She wanted to thank him right then and immediately called him. However, he didn't have service where he was. Su Yaya thought that perhaps he was busy when it didn't go through. But the two would have been able to see each other when they were filming this ad anyway, so it didn't matter. It would be better if she thanked him in person anyways. That way it seemed more sincere. Originally, Su Yaya had it all planned out. She was going to thank him when she saw him. Who knew that when she finished applying makeup, his manager, Sister Wu, had pulled him away before she could even say anything to him. Plus, Sister Wu looked at her in alarm, which placed her in a bad mood. She was unhappy for a while and didn't recover from this mood until after filming the ad. She felt so awkward that she didn't know how to cooperate with Yan Junyi. Thankfully, the two were able to adjust their feelings later on and successfully finish filming the ad. Right now, the hallway was empty, so Su Yaya had a chance to thank Yan Junyi. Yan Junyi looked at her in a complicated gaze. He recalled his feelings, which he clarified when clearing the situation on Weibo the other day. The moment he knew that there were internet water armies, he wanted to speak up for her. It was at that moment when Sister Wu ran over to tell him to quickly clarify their relationship. Initiating the clarification and being forced to clarify are two different matters and feelings. Especially after Sister Wu told him to avoid her because her sugar daddy isn't someone a small celebrity like him could offend. He and her were not from the same world. Chapter 74. Not from the same world 2. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Ch 74. Not from the same world 2. He suddenly recalled how well behaved and cute looking she was when they were young. Every day, she was like his tail, calling him Brother Yen. His heart would soften hearing this. Brother Yen, time to go to school. Brother Yen, you're so good at running. Brother Yen, you got first place. The cute and well-behaved little girl had grown up now. She was a beautiful and charming woman. She had stopped following him and calling him Brother Yen. She was different from before. It's something I should do. Yen Junyi calmly said. Su Yaya smiled and said, I need to thank you regardless. If he didn't clarify or speak up for her, his near total of 30 million fans would tear her to pieces and skin her alive. Yen Junyi faintly smiled, but it was forced. He wasn't really happy, instead his heart ached while looking at her. Yaya, do you remember when you scraped your knee when you were 9 and bled a lot? You were incredibly frightened, telling me to bring you to the doctors as you cried. I carried you to the infirmary and the doctor treated your wound. It stopped bleeding later on, but you cried miserably because of the pain. I told you to protect and take care of yourself in the future and not to let yourself be hurt. Otherwise, those who love you will also feel pain if you're hurt. Su Yaya blinked her eyes. She was a fake. How could she know if she had said this before? While maintaining a smile, she tried her best to rummage through the remaining memories the original host left. She indeed found a piece of this memory. That time, the original host really injured her knee and Yen Junyi personally carried her to the infirmary. Seeing that she was in a lot of pain, his eyes became teary because he felt bad. He patted her head, saying that he would always protect her in the future and for her to take care and love herself. It's quite touching. The two kids stood next to each other. The boy promised to protect the girl. It was such a pure and sincere promise, one that someone would remember their whole life. Su Yaya nodded. I remember, thank you. Besides this simple sentence, Su Yaya didn't know what to say. After all, she wasn't the original host. She was unable to guess the original host's feelings and attitude toward Yen Junyi. They haven't met for so many years. She could only say that she remembered when he suddenly mentioned their childhood. She even thanked him. Nothing could go wrong from this. A glimpse of disappointment flashed by Yen Junyi's face. He didn't want to hear this. He hoped that she would show self-love and not go on the wrong path. Yaya, you have to love and not hurt yourself. The entertainment circle is very complicated. I don't want you to be hurt. You might think this is a shortcut right now, but once you remember this in the future, you will regret this. Yen Junyi felt bad for her and looked deeply, while saying this gloomily. What do you mean? Su Yaya was confused and with difficulty, tugged a smile on her face. She really had no idea why he had said this. How could she do something to hurt herself? When did she not love herself? She felt that his words were random. Yen Junyi thought she had smiled bitterly and became even more determined with his thoughts. He looked at her in pity and heartache. Yaya, you're a great girl. Based on your conditions, even if you don't rely on President Chen and decide not to find a sugar daddy, you can believe in yourself and do better. Stop being with someone like President Chen. He's not suitable for you. You will be hurt in the future. What? How did he know she would be hurt in the future? Su Yaya blinked her eyes and observed Yen Junyi. He looked at her in concern and pity. Oh, it should be concern and pity for the original host. But she unfortunately couldn't accept his good intentions. Leaving aside the fact the original host wasn't here anymore, she didn't even know if she would return in the future. But right now, she had taken over the body. She and Yen Junyi had only talked twice. At most, they were just acquaintances. It would be inaccurate to say they had deep feelings. She didn't believe that his feelings for her would be that deep after separating for a decade or so. Plus, she had the title as Lady Chen right now. She and Chen Xiuqi were married, marriage by contract. Chen Xiuqi was the male lead in the original novel. He was a dominant president with powerful means and methods. Right now, she must please him. Even if people had given her courage, she wouldn't dare to listen to Yen Junyi. Otherwise, she would be an unlucky person if she angered Chen Xiuqi. That when she thought of this, Su Yaya calmly said to Yen Junyi, "Thank you for your intentions. I know what to do. Yaya. I'll be going now." Ignoring Yen Junyi's harmful gaze, Su Yaya turned around and left. It seemed like she wanted to escape him, running off. Yen Junyi glanced at her quickly fading silhouette and murmured, "Yaya." Su Yaya rapidly ran away. She walked to the makeup room and walked in. She looked up to see Chen Xiuqi sitting inside. She gasped in fright. Chapter 75. Unexpected Visitor, 1, you are listening at novelfull.audio. Ch 75 Unexpected Visitor, 1, Su Yaya would never have thought they would see Chen Xiuqi the moment she opened the door. Her heart thumped rapidly from the fright. He expressionlessly sat on a seat and coldly glanced at her. "President Chen, why are you here?" Su Yaya was a bit stiff. Recalling the words Yen Junyi had said, she had no idea what Chen Xiuqi had heard or not heard. She couldn't help but be a bit guilty. Although she didn't agree to Yen Junyi's request, what he had said about Chen Xiuqi was quite offending. With Chen Xiuqi's attitude, if he knew that Yen Junyi had talked behind his back, it would be tragic for Yen Junyi. She, who was looked after by Yen Junyi, would definitely be unable to get away with this too. It was scarier the more she thought about it. Su Yaya's heart was trembling. Hopefully, Chen Xiuqi didn't know what Yen Junyi had said to her. Chen Xiuqi looked up to observe Su Yaya. Seeing that she was standing by the door and stunned, she was clearly surprised by his sudden appearance. As it turned out, after Chen Xiuqi left, he was on his way to the company when he suddenly thought of something and he had Uncle Zhong make a U-turn to come back here. Wasn't she just filming an ad? Wasn't the kiss just for the ad? There were numerous actors who had to film sex scenes for movies and TV shows. She just had to kiss for the ad. It wasn't a big deal. If he left angrily, it made him look too stingy. This was no big deal. She was just doing this for her work. Why would he be angry over this? Go back. He immediately had Uncle Zhong drive back here. He had the envision that Su Yaya would have been incredibly happy to see him visiting her. She would have thrown herself in his arms and rubbed her face against his chest, like a little kitten. When he thought of this, he was in a great mood. But right now, he only saw shock on Su Yaya's face and no happiness at all. This was a little different from what he expected. He originally thought that she would have been ecstatic to see him visiting her, like usual. She would be well behaved and try to please him. Yet, expectations were different from reality. Chen Xiuqi, who was originally unhappy, became even more unhappy. He motioned for Su Yaya to come over with a cold face. "Come over. Why are you standing so far away? I won't eat you." But she was scared that he would. Su Yaya replied in her heart but didn't dare not to go over. She tried to adjust the expression on her face, making herself look more natural. No matter what, she should go and please Chen Xiuqi right now and make him happy. There would be nothing wrong if she did that. Su Yaya made her decision and walked over in calm strides. She transformed into a happy bird, pouncing on him. She smiled splendidly at him. She didn't care whether Shinshochi would agree or not, but she held onto his arm with her two hands. She tightly pressed her body against his arm and said with a surprised and sweet tone, "President Chen, why are you here? Did you come here to specially visit me? When did you come? How come I didn't know? Have you been waiting for a long time? Oh my, I'm so happy. I don't even know what to say." She was so lost and frightened that she didn't know what to say. Su Yaya was so nervous that she kept on rambling. She rambled to conceal her emotions. After Shinshochi was hugged by Su Yaya, a special sweet fragrance from Su Yaya entered his nose. He stared at her splendid and bright smile and listened to her rambling. He glanced at her sparkling eyes, bright like diamonds. Who said that she wasn't shocked? She was clearly shocked right now. "I have been here for a while." Shinshochi stroked her hair, clearly in a good mood. He was affectionate with her unlike before when he looked at her indifferently. Su Yaya clearly felt Shinshochi's change of attitude. This was right. It was correct for her to please Shinshochi. From this, it seems like he is easy to please. After all, she had exerted more than 100% of her acting skills. He. She finally calmed her nervous heart down. "Why didn't you tell me that you were visiting?" Su Yaya asked as she continued to act cute. Shinshochi stroked her hair again and said, "It's the same if I'm waiting here for you." Su Yaya blinked her eyes and an idea formulated in her mind. She kissed Shinshochi and smiled as she said, "President Chen, you're the best." Shinshochi put a faint smile on his face. He was really happy on the inside, despite not showing it. He faintly said, "Is it fun to film ads?" Su Yaya pondered over this. She realized that Shinshochi was a bit dangerous right now. Whether she responded with yes or no, it didn't matter, it wouldn't be a good answer. Therefore, she decided not to answer his question. She replied with her own thoughts, "There's no such thing as having fun or not. I'm just doing this for work." She filmed ads for work. She went to work to earn money. Once she has money, she could do whatever she wanted. There was no problem with this logic. Chapter 76. Unexpected Visitor, 2, you are listening at novelfull.audio. Ch76 Unexpected Visitor, 2, despite the fact that Su Yaya's answer didn't really suit Shinshochi's thoughts, he didn't think it was a bad answer. After all, it was work. It was the same as him playing along with someone to discuss business. He wasn't as unpleased about Su Yaya and Yan Junyi kissing anymore. "Quickly pack up so we can go home." Shinshochi patted Su Yaya and untangled her from himself. He rushed her to remove her makeup. Su Yaya said wittily, "Wait a while for me." Shinshochi lifted his right hand to look at the time on the watch. He said expressionlessly, "I'm only giving you 10 minutes. It felt like he would be leaving her here if she didn't come out in 10 minutes. Would he be that heartless? Su Yaya felt like Shinshochi wouldn't be that harsh, but her instincts told her that there was nothing a dominant president like Shinshochi wouldn't do. He was harsher than anyone else. She, a cannon fodder, wouldn't dare to challenge him. "I will be done instantly." Su Yaya quickly walked over to the makeup table to remove her makeup. Shinshochi stood behind her. Su Yaya saw him looking at the time on his watch every now and then in the reflection of the mirror. It seemed like he was giving her a countdown. Would he really walk off after 10 minutes? This thought scared Su Yaya. She hurriedly wiped makeup remover on her face and almost accidentally wiped it in her eyes. She was even more anxious than going on a battlefield. When she finished her last step, she looked at the time and laughed. Haha. Thankfully, it was only 9 minutes and 10 seconds, it hadn't been 10 minutes yet. "I'm done. We can go now." Su Yaya held on to Shinshochi's arm and smiled. Her beautiful eyes were like the crescent of the moon. She was sweet and adorable. Shinshochi pinched her face. It was smooth and soft. He smiled and wrapped his arms around her waist. He said, "Let's go." The two walked out the makeup room and even met Yan Junyi, who was still standing in the hallway. His head was down and he leaned against the wall. He held a cigarette between his fingers and there were sparks jumping. Hearing the sound of the makeup room opening, he suddenly looked over to see Su Yaya and Chen Xiuqi walking out together. Yan Junyi stood up straight and his gaze was on Su Yaya. He revealed a look of pity on his handsome face, wanting to say something but he didn't in the end. The moment Su Yaya saw his gaze, alarms rang in her heart. She was scared that he might say something bad under impulse in front of Chen Xiuqi. After all, he was just a side character in the original book who barely had any lines. The dominant president, Chen Xiuqi, could easily make him miserable. Out of personal feelings, she didn't want to drag him down. She wanted him to peacefully live his life in the entertainment circle. She blinked her eyes at him anxiously and so quickly that there was almost a whiplash in her eyes. Thankfully, Yan Junyi understood her. Seeing that she blinked her eyes at him, he knew what she was thinking. She didn't want him to be involved in her matters. He secretly sighed and didn't say anything that would affect Su Yaya. He calmly said, "Goodbye." Goodbye. That meant that they would only see each other again if it was fated. Ednel.co in the future, Su Yaya only thought of avoiding him. Her heart was really weak and couldn't endure being frightened day and night. Goodbye. Su Yaya didn't say this with as much emotions as Yan Junyi did. She quickly said that and walked off with Chen Xiuqi. On the way to the car, Chen Xiuqi didn't say anything either. When they got in the car, Chen Xiuqi indicated for Uncle Zhong to raise the partition between them. Then he turned around to look at Su Yaya, asking, "What exactly is going on between you and him?" Su Yaya knew that he was referring to Yan Junyi. Although he didn't say anything he wasn't supposed to, his emotions were clearly shown on his face. How could a smart person like Chen Xiuqi not be able to tell? What could happen between me and him? Su Yaya forced a smile and said, "We were neighbors in our childhood and haven't seen each other for many years. We don't normally contact each other either. I was just a bit shocked when I heard we were actually going to collaborate together." Chen Xiuqi glanced at her and smiled. "Is that so?" "Of course." Su Yaya quickly responded and looked innocently at Chen Xiuqi. Looking at her innocent gaze, would he think that she was lying? Of course not. He. Chen Xiuqi tugged a smile on his face, accepting her response. They were on their way home and the journey was peaceful. Chen Xiuqi didn't probe about the matters regarding Yan Junyi. Su Yaya slightly sighed. When they returned home, Chen Xiuqi leaned against the sofa and said to Su Yaya, "Go cook." Su Yaya hummed in agreement and tried to please him. "What do you want to eat?" Chen Xiuqi said, "Sweet and sour fish, sweet and sour pork chop, sweet and sour Chinese cabbage, sweet and sour eggplant." Su Yaya couldn't hold it in and burst into laughter. She pounced on him and bit his lip. "How can you be so cute?" Chapter 77. Like a Child, 1, you are listening at novelfull.audio. Ch 77 Like a Child, 1, the two cuddled with each other for a while and Su Yaya was like a puddle of water, leaning into Chen Xiuqi's arms. She said softly, "I'm hungry." Chen Xiuqi kissed her lips and curled his lips into a smile. "I'm hungry too." Su Yaya softly pounded his chest with her fists. She swayed her slender legs back and forth, acting cute. "I'm being serious." Chen Xiuqi laughed proudly and picked up his phone by the side. "I'll call someone to send food over." "Okay." Su Yaya smiled sweetly and kissed Chen Xiuqi's face. Who knew that Chen Xiuqi would suddenly stop dialing the phone number? He then turned to look at Su Yaya and said meaningfully, "I actually want to eat food cooked by you." Su Yaya said, "Okay," and smiled. "You want to eat vinegar?" T/N, to eat vinegar, in Chinese can also mean to be jealous, he. The audacity of her. She dared to make fun of him. Chinshochi pinched her cheeks and said, I want to eat something sweet. Heh. She'd be dumb to believe him. Did he think that she didn't see his gloomy face from before? It was black like the bottom of the pot. In the past, she thought that he liked to act cool. She now knew him as someone childish, he was like a little kid. Then I want to eat something sweet too. Su Yaya followed him and looked up. She blinked her bright eyes at him, trying to say that she would do whatever he wanted. He didn't know what to do with her. Chinshochi rubbed her hair and looked at her in a pampering gaze. Okay. Su Yaya was happy again. She believed that she understood Chinshochi's attitude now. As long as she tried hard enough to soothe him, with enough acting skills, she would be able to easily comfort him. It wasn't very hard. Chinshochi looked at Su Yaya who was foolishly laughing. Why did she enjoy to laugh so much? He helplessly sighed and called a number to order food. When dinner was brought over, it was almost an hour later. Once Su Yaya and Chinshochi finished their food, they sat on the sofa and watched an entertainment program for a while. Then they returned to the room to rinse and sleep. The next morning, while Su Yaya was still asleep, Chinshochi dug her up from the bed. He pinched Su Yaya's sleepy face and soothed her. Quickly wake up. I'm going to take you somewhere fun. Su Yaya said sleepily, where are we going? Chinshochi patted her face and smiled. Quickly go rinse and get dressed. You'll find out once we're there. Su Yaya was stunned for a second before she nodded. She got out of bed and dressed herself. After sitting in the car for a while, Su Yaya then noticed that the car was heading to the outskirts. She realized this and asked, are we going to the outskirts? Chinshochi patted her head and said, we are going to Yunhu Villa. Yunhu Villa was the biggest villa in the capital for vacation. The scenery was picturesque. It was a great place for travel and vacation. Su Yaya reached over to hold on to Chinshochi's arms. She leaned her chin on his shoulder and looked up to say, I haven't been there before but I've heard people say it was very fun. Chinshochi said calmly, you'll find out for yourself after going there. In the past, he had been there multiple times but didn't think it was that much fun. But seeing how happy Su Yaya was, he didn't expose this. He wanted her to see for herself. The car quickly arrived at Yunhu Villa. Because he had contacted them earlier on, when they arrived, the manager came to welcome them. He indicated that everything was arranged for them. Su Yaya wanted to stroll around in the villa and Chinshochi offered to accompany her. The two followed the interesting and appealing corridor. The two walked to the back of the villa and she looked over to see a huge lake. It was a deep lake and fish were raised there. There were some tools for fishing at the shore. Wow, we can even fish here. Su Yaya couldn't hold in the urge to fish when she saw this. She ran over to pick up a fishing rod. She turned to say to Chinshochi, let's fish. Chinshochi didn't reject this either. He walked towards Su Yaya and she hurriedly helped him pick a fishing rod. Take this one and I will take this one. After picking the fishing rod, Su Yaya found a bucket to put the fish in. She placed the fish food in the bucket and looked at her surroundings. She chose a spot that was diagonal from where she was then told Chinshochi that she was going to fish there. She picked up the fishing rod, bucket, and a small camping chair, then ran over. Chinshochi watched as she chose her place to sit and placed the fishing rod down. The bucket was next to her and she opened the camping chair and placed it down. She hooked the fish food on the fishing rod and then pretended to fish. It'd be bizarre if she was able to fish like this. After seeing her actions, Chinshochi silently commented in his heart. Why aren't you coming over to fish? Seeing that Chinshochi didn't move from his spot, she hollered at him. The bystanders who looked over watched as Chinshochi who wore a suit held a fishing rod. They couldn't help but think it was a bit strange. Chinshochi felt awkward too. He picked up the fishing rod and walked to the ride. He decided not to fish next to Su Yaya so he wouldn't be influenced by her. Chapter 78. Like a Child, 2, you are listening at novelfull.audio. Ch 78 Like a Child, 2, so, Chen Xiuqi found a spot far from Su Yaya. They were directly across from each other. Chen Xiuqi made his preparations for fishing, then silently sat there, waiting for the fish to take the bait. Su Yaya, who was across, suddenly yelled. "Oh my God! I got it! I got it!" The loud voice echoed across the entire lake. He watched as she screamed while frantically pulling the fishing line up. She was so anxious and busy that Chen Xiuqi was worried she might fall into the lake accidentally. He wanted to walk over and help her, but then she actually tugged the fish up. Su Yaya took the fish off the fishing hook and compared it to her hand. It was the size of half the length of her palm. She broke into a smile and cupped the fish with her hands. She proudly called Chen Xiuqi, who was across, and said, "President Chen, look. I got a big fish." Chen Xiuqi wanted to cover his face. He shouldn't have brought her here too. He turned around and pretended he didn't know her, silently continuing to fish. Su Yaya was so happy that she didn't notice anything strange. She happily placed the fish in the bucket and continued to fish for the next one. Chen Xiuqi thought that she must be settling down now. Who knew that not even 10 minutes in, Su Yaya started to cheer again. "Ah, I got another fish." Chen Xiuqi looked at his unmoving fish float. These fish aren't giving him face. He was a bit angry. Su Yaya, who was on the other side, placed the second fish in her bucket. She suddenly remembered how Chen Xiuqi said nothing. She stood up and asked, "President Chen, did you get any fish?" Chen Xiuqi had a gloomy face, not wanting to answer her. Su Yaya got no response. She thought that he hadn't heard her, so she asked again, "President Chen, did you get any fish?" He disliked her asking him again and again. He was irritated. Chen Xiuqi said coldly, "No, haha." Su Yaya proudly laughed. "I got 2. You have to try harder." Chen Xiuqi's face was unwell and he harshly said, "Wait for it." Su Yaya giggled and her eyes were crescent-like. She was waiting for him. Then, a strange scene appeared by the lake. On Su Yaya's side, she would cheer every now and then. She got another fish. It was a huge one. Ha ha ha. On Chen Xiuqi's side, however, it had been silent, strangely silent. From the beginning to now, he had not gotten a single fish. Damn. This stupid place is cursed. Once Su Yaya got another fish, Chen Xiuqi threw the fishing rod to the side. He couldn't get a single fish, and compared to the number of fish Su Yaya got, he was losing his face. Can he choose not to fish anymore? The next day, he will have someone purchase this stupid villa. He didn't believe in this curse. President Chen, wait for me." Su Yaya watched as Chen Xiuqi threw the fishing rod. Seeing that he got no fish, he must have been angry. She hurriedly placed her fishing rod and chased after him. She wanted to hold on to Chen Xiuqi's arm, but he avoided her. Su Yaya wasn't discouraged either. She tried again, and this time, Chen Xiuqi didn't dodge his touch. He allowed her. Sigh. This man would be angry from not being able to get a fish. He acts like a child. Su Yaya roasted him in her heart. She held on to his arm and said, "President Chen, where are we going to play now?" Chen Xiuqi said, "Nowhere." He was in no mood to play. He tragically lost in front of who he believes to be a newbie. He got no fish at all. He didn't want to lose his face. Su Yaya glanced at Chen Xiuqi. He was angry at not getting a fish. Did he think that he was losing face because he lost to her? This was indeed the truth. Su Yaya really understood Chen Xiuqi. "Why don't we go play golf?" This was a sport played by the rich. Chen Xiuqi was great at it and she had never played before. Chen Xiuqi should be very pleased. He looked at her and before he could say anything, she tugged his shoulders. Let's go, let's go. I haven't played this before. You can teach me. With Su Yaya trying to act cute and pleasing him, Chen Xiuqi also wanted to regain his good image. He had lost tragically before and now, he should do something he was good at. He wanted to let Su Yaya see what he was capable of. Therefore, Chen Xiuqi reluctantly agreed to bring her to the golf course to play after Su Yaya's begging. Chen Xiuqi had changed into sportswear while Su Yaya changed her dress into a T-shirt and sports skirt. She revealed her long and smooth legs. She wore white sneakers and a sun hat. It made her look youthful and full of vigor. Am I beautiful? Su Yaya ran over to him and spun in a circle. The hem of the skirt slid up a bit. She was pure and cute. Chen Xiuqi's eyes swept over her legs and said, beautiful. Su Yaya immediately smiled. President Chen, you have good taste. Trying to seduce him. Uniform temptation. He could try this at home. Su Yaya detected his passionate and burning gaze. She hurriedly placed away her thoughts of teasing him. She hurriedly said, President Chen, teach me how to play. Chen Xiuqi coughed and shifted his gaze from her. Come over and I will teach you. T/N Kitty Haha, how can he impress MC when she's better than him at fishing lol. Chapter 79. Playing Golf, 1, you are listening at novelfull.audio. Ch 79 Playing Golf, 1, Chen Xiuqi was great at playing golf. Each ball went accurately into a hole. While watching him play, Su Yaya would always cheer when the ball went into the hole. She was an incredibly good cheerleader. President Chen, you have great skills. President Chen, you're amazing. President Chen, you're awesome. He listened to Su Yaya's gentle and sweet voice. Chen Xiuqi pleasingly smiled, finding some face back. When Chen Xiuqi made another accurate shot and finished, Su Yaya ran over. Sunlight shone on her thin and slender legs and the sports skirt swayed as she ran over. She was like a happy bird running over as she threw herself in his arms. Su Yaya stood on her tippy toes and kissed Chen Xiuqi's face before complimenting him openly, President Chen, you're awesome. Chen Xiuqi glanced at her and the corner of his lips curled up. It was unconcealed pride. This is nothing. I can be better. Really? Su Yaya looked at him in admiration, her eyes sparkling and bright. Chen Xiuqi took this chance to hold her and gently bit her earlobe as he lowered his head. His voice seemed to put her under a spell. We can try this when we go back to the room. Hm. You can put on some more outfits. Despite Su Yaya's shamelessness, her courage to brace herself for this, and her great acting skills, she still couldn't help but shiver when Chen Xiuqi leaned in her ears and said this, causing his warm breath swept over her ears like feathers. Her cheeks gradually turned red, as if she had put on pink blush. You're so annoying. Su Yaya coquettishly replied and gently pounded his chest. How dare he say this out loud and right here? Chen Xiuqi grabbed her hands and smiled proudly. His chest slightly vibrated from laughter as his unhappiness had disappeared. He had a beautiful woman in his arms and she was very cute, one who had pleased him very much. The two were being intimate and saying secretive things to each other when they suddenly heard a male voice. President Chen seems to be in a good mood. Su Yaya was embraced by Chen Xiuqi and her back was towards them. She didn't know who it was but she felt the voice was familiar. It felt like she heard this somewhere. Then she heard Chen Xiuqi talk calmly, President Wang, it seems like you have friends over too. Su Yaya was confused. President Wang. The President Wang she knew. She recalled his voice and it was really Wang Wenhouse. Why was he here? Su Yaya turned around to see Wang Wenhao wearing deep blue sportswear. He held a golf club in his hand and squinted with his red phoenix eyes. He had a half smile on his handsome face. "Old friend, I haven't seen you in a while." Wang Wenhao had recognized Su Yaya long ago. When she turned around, he first smiled and greeted her. Su Yaya was slightly shocked, but she quickly recovered. She showed off her 120% acting skills, smiling and greeting him. "Hey, old friend. You must be Su Yaya. You're beautiful. More beautiful than on TV." There was an online celebrity by Wang Wenhao's side. She recognized Su Yaya at first glance and immediately grinned at her, then enthusiastically said, "I saw the drama you acted in, Pamper After Marriage. You have good acting skills and I like you very much." Su Yaya glanced at the online celebrity and saw that she was a woman about her age. The woman applied makeup conspicuously and her face was paler than the color of the wall. The color of her lips were red as fresh blood. She wore a white dress that was very short, barely up to her thighs, and she revealed her long and slender legs, but it wasn't as fine and well-proportioned as hers, nor was it as white. Her leg muscles seemed to be slightly sturdy, not as appealing as hers. Without comparison, the online celebrity had beautiful legs as well. But with Su Yaya present, one could see the difference. The difference was huge as well, like one on heaven and one on earth. There would be no pain if there weren't any comparisons. The online celebrity was overly enthusiastic and Su Yaya felt the need to entertain her thoughts, otherwise people might think she was arrogant and hard to talk to. That was why she smiled and replied, but who would have thought that the online celebrity was even more enthusiastic? She immediately held on to Su Yaya's arms and started to chat with her. Su Yaya had no choice but to respond every now and then. Wang Wenhao had invited Chen Xiuqi. "Let's play around. What do you think, President Chen?" Everyone was a businessman, they knew how to act. Plus, last time, Yongrong Food Company had clarified the situation because it had given Chen Xiuqi face. Right now, there was no reason for Chen Xiuqi to reject the offer. Chen Xiuqi faintly glanced at Wang Wenhao and said, "Okay, let's play around." The two competed while Su Yaya and the online celebrity sat by the side and observed the game. With this break, the online celebrity smiled at Su Yaya and asked, "Can we follow each other on Weibo?" While she said this, she already opened Weibo, wanting to follow her and vice versa. Su Yaya pursed her lips and pondered over it before nodding. She took out her phone and followed her back. Chapter 80. Playing Golf. 2, you are listening at novelfull.audio. Ch80 Playing Golf. 2, once they followed each other, Su Yaya casually clicked her Weibo to check out her posts. There were lots of photoshopped photos of her. The majority were pictures after she added fillers of herself. There was quite a difference between her and the actual her. As it turned out, she lied to her fans about her identity. "Sister Yaya, we are friends now. You can call me Xiao Yu in the future," the online celebrity said. Su Yaya slightly nodded. "Xiao Yu it is." Xiao Yu's phone rang, signaling notifications. She smiled at Su Yaya and walked to the side to respond to the message. Su Yaya looked at her and didn't care about what she was doing. She focused on Chen Xiuqi and Wang Wenhao's competition. Xiao Yu opened her WeChat to see numerous messages sent in the group chat. "Wang Jing. What the heck? Is there something wrong with my eyes? Or did you and Su Yaya followed each other? Deeply hugging Lon Lon. Why did you and Su Yaya follow each other? Do you know her? Love sweet Tang Tang. How did you know Su Yaya? You've gotten to her good side." Dozens of messages were of the same content. Xiao Yu read through them and smiled proudly. She didn't think she would be involved with Wang Wenhao one day and then had met Su Yaya. Even more so, she didn't think they would have followed each other. In her group of sisters, they all thought Su Yaya was cool. They were all online celebrities. Yet, Su Yaya was able to take on online dramas and famous ads. She even got the second female lead role for a huge TV show and had Yen Junyi, this current famous celebrity, as her neighbor. Moreover, she and President Chen were a couple. She was basically the winner in life. Xiao Yu smiled and replied. Xiao Yu. I met Su Yaya today and exchanged Weibos with her. Guess who else I saw? Wang Jing. Who? Is it my idol, Yen Junyi? Deeply hugging Lon Lon. Right, is it Yen Junyi? Love sweet Tang Tang. Why do I think it's President Chen? Everyone in the group chat made their own guesses, rushing Xiao Yu to reveal the person. When the sisters in the group chat were about done with their discussion and Xiao Yu felt that she had given them enough suspense, she answered. Xiao Yu. President Wang wanted to teach me to play gold before, so I left for a bit. Acting cute. JPG love sweet Tang Tang. Okay. You don't need to show off your love with President Wang. Quickly tell us who it was. Wang Jing. Right, quickly tell us. Deeply hugging Lon Lon. Speak. Who is it? Xiao Yu purposefully responded. Guess. The moment she sent this message, everyone in the group chat was displeased. They claimed that if she didn't immediately tell the truth, they would come over and tear her to pieces. Xiao Yu. Fine, I'm scared of you guys. I'll say. Deeply hugging Lon Lon. Quickly. Xiao Yu. It's Chen Company's President Chen Xiuqi. Once she said this, the group was silent for 3 seconds. Then they started to explode and scream. Oh! Love sweet Tang Tang. Su Yaya is really with President Chen. Is it President Chen from the Chen Company? Deeply hugging Lon Lon. Ah, my husband. Xiao Yu. Heh. Deeply hugging Lon Lon. No pic, no truth. No pic, no truth. No pic, no truth. I need say this 3 times. Xiao Yu was speechless. Not far from here, Chen Xiuqi and Wang Wenhao were already done playing golf. Chen Xiuqi won. Su Yaya hurriedly ran over with a bottle of water and a towel. President Chen, drink water. President Chen, wipe your sweat. Chen Xiuqi glanced at Wang Wenhao and slightly smiled. He bent down a bit and indicated for Su Yaya to wipe his sweat for him in front of Wang Wenhao. Su Yaya guessed his intentions and sighed. She calmly picked up the towel and wiped his sweat for him. Chen Xiuqi's smile deepened. The sunlight was splendid and bright. The clouds were fluff. The grass was an oil green. The breeze was gentle. The handsome man and beautiful woman were eye-catching. Xiao Yu was suddenly attracted by this scene, like Cinderella and her Prince Charming. It was even more beautiful than in the fantasies. She was suddenly propelled by an urge and picked up her phone to capture this scene where Chen Xiuqi kissed her forehead while Su Yaya wiped his sweat for him. After she finished, she was about to send it to the group chat. But when her hand hovered over the picture and prepared to send this, she suddenly stopped. Would it be bad to send this? After all, Su Yaya was a celebrity right now. If people found out about it, it might influence her. Never mind. She would be better off not sending it. Maybe it was because of Xiao Yu's conscience acting up, so she abandoned her decision. Thankfully she hadn't done this either. If she did, she didn't need to be part of the entertainment circle anymore. Chen Xiuqi and Wang Wenhao enjoyed their time playing golf. It was getting late, so the group decided to have an all-fish banquet in the villa. It was all fish that Su Yaya caught. When the 4 sat down, a glimpse of light flashed by Wang Wenhao's red phoenix eyes as he glanced at the table full of fish. He smiled at Su Yaya and asked shockingly, Yaya, did you really catch all of this? I remember how you disliked eating fish when you were a child.